and thanks for joining the SJ Childs Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today my guest is Rachel Warner. Hi, Rachel. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Rachel and I were just discussing what it's like to be a female with autism and kind of just different ways that we look at strategizing and just viewing a whole new world that I think the world is kind of just having a peek into. Wouldn't you
hmm
say? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think our world sort of misses the mark on what they how they view autism and the picture they sort of carry around in their mind. Um,
Exactly.
we're not all 8-year-old boys. Surprise.
Yeah, think that's well said.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there is such a difference. I mean, they obviously, they count the number of boys and it's like these super high numbers. It's like 1 in 30 is our stats right now for
Right.
people with autism in the world. And it's like 1 in, 11 boys in Utah, where I'm at. I'm not quite sure where you're at, but
Wow.
yeah, it's high, but the
It's
number
high.
that is girls is so much different. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about kind of these hits and misses and how girls are so much better at masking and covering up, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let's start back to maybe even childhood, college, like you said. Tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yeah. So I grew up like in a pretty normal family. My parents are still married. I think from day one, my parents knew I was different, but there was never, it was the 90s, like there was Ritalin or like you were fine.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that was there was no in between. And so it was even pointed out to them by my pediatrician when I wasn't talking at 3 years old that like maybe there was something going on, and nothing was ever pursued, nothing was ever investigated. So it just stayed what it was, and I excelled in school, but I really, really struggled with my peers. Like I could just never get it right. Like it didn't matter. I would be right 90% of the time in social settings, and then 10% of the time, I'd totally stick my foot in my mouth. And it was just utterly embarrassing. And that is how I describe like literally from the day I started talking until like, hi, I'm 30, still doing it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So, and as you can imagine, like it results in a ton of like bullying, a ton of trauma, and you start to develop coping mechanisms and trauma responses, and that's where masking comes in for so many of us. And so,
Yeah.
by the time I'd gotten to middle school and high school, I realized like I wanted nothing more than to be popular. Like I
Yeah.
remember having this thought, like if only I could be popular, my world would be better. People would like me. And so I like was a cheerleader, and I, played sports, and I tried to do what the popular kids did, and like could never, it never worked. Like
Right.
moral of the story.
That's so
Um,
interesting. When you
yeah.
so when you were on that cheerleading squad, I mean, normally you see them and they're just like this tight group of kids that you're like, oh, I want to be a part of that. Absolutely, right?
Right.
How did that look for you or feel for you? I mean, did you participate in all of the things? Obviously, it's the social events, but how did you still feel within that group?
So, yeah, and that's interesting. So, in social dynamics, I thrive when I can be the dominant personality.
Mhm.
So, if I can be the center of attention, if it can be the Rachel show and I can control the dynamic, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
The problem is when there's other big personalities near me and I can't control it, and then I don't know what the heck to do.
Yeah.
And apparently I'm like confrontational, or they're intimidated or something, and I'm unaware.
Yeah.
And so I will continue to be inadvertently confrontational. And that obviously results in, mean girls. And so I
Interesting.
usually found myself like the leader of the misfits.
Yeah.
Because one of my autism super skills, like a lot of us, is that like I'll tell you what needs to be said,
Yeah. Isn't
you
that the
know?
truth?
Yeah. So like I'll stick up for people and tell
Yeah.
you to, take a hike. And so that's how I always end up being sort of the
Yeah.
leader of those that just don't fit in.
Yeah. You know, I'm learning so much, like we were talking about. I'm looking at my 9-year-old daughter now, and I've been looking at this male perspective of autism for so long with my son for over a decade. And now I'm learning all of these different ways to look at it for my daughter. And I'm seeing that in these types of situations, she's already lost friends. She is 9 years old. And she's already said, hey, this person said this about you. And the person was like, oh my gosh, that was so hurtful. I never want to talk to you again, even though she was
Yeah.
relaying a message. And, it was kind of right about the time where we were questioning. And so I reached out and said, I'm pretty sure she has autism. So let's give her some flexibility in learning this life lesson and how to communicate. We never heard from them again. They ghosted her. Saddest thing ever, right? Not a very good way
Yeah.
to help her through any kind of conflict resolution.
Yeah. At 9.
Yeah,
Same.
exactly. That's kind of crazy. But at the same time, it gave me a kind of a view in the sense that just like you, it's when she felt out of control. When she was the leader, she
Mhm.
was in control. She had control of things happening. Everything was okay. But once that little tiny crack of not controlling steps in, that's where your mind goes, oh my gosh, I don't know, what do I do next? This isn't
Yeah.
what I had planned. This is unexpected. I can't plan this next person's move. I don't know what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my like that is the most challenging. And it's amazing how young it starts.
Right.
And I think a lot of those elementary and middle and high school kids that are struggling with cutting and self-harm and eating disorders and things in which they're trying to control situations around them and manage their emotions. I think we should be looking into
A hundred
whether or
percent.
not they're on the spectrum,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
it's
I
so
agree.
common and it starts so early.
Yeah. Oh, and I love to be able to speak to you about this today because I think you and I have the exact same idea that this is
Yeah.
it's in more than less people than they would like to admit or see,
Hmm.
if for that matter. In you and in not, in you and me and in all of my family, which
Yeah.
everyone knows, and I celebrate it with 100%. I back them up all the way, and
Yeah.
it is so interesting because thinking back to, I wasn't really in cheerleading or, would did stuff like that, but I was in like choirs, and, it was the same thing. It was like, I always had like the loudest, strongest voice. I'd always have to be like in the back of the choir, even though I'm the shortest
Yes.
person ever. And I always like had to take control of all of these things, and people could look at it and be like, oh, she's so social, she's so outgoing, and so things like that. But to be honest, I never really felt like I fit in with anything, with any group,
Right.
with any um group of friends. Yes, I had close friends, but it was usually one or two at a time, or not even
Right.
two at a time was too much, right? One at a
Right.
time. Usually found myself so much easier to deal with a group of boys and be kind of the tomboy
Yep.
than to be the girl and deal with all the catty like stuff. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't get it. I didn't like it. My mom was always, why don't you be the girl? Why don't you have the group of girls? Why don't you know? And yeah, I'd like to know that too. Like
Yeah, mom.
it sucks for me that I don't have
Yeah.
that. But yeah, they didn't see it, and
Yeah.
I could barely even talk to her about thinking that I'm on the spectrum, because she looks at autism just like you said. I'm not an 8-year-old boy.
Right.
I don't have either so much stimming that I'm like rocking back and forth, and I don't have a photographic memory, and I'm not speaking 25 languages, right?
Right.
So I can't be. And that's just absurdities that we need to clear up.
I mean, yeah. And that's the thing. So like as we grow up, I mean, think about it. If you've been bullied since you're 9 or ostracized since you're 9, or even earlier than that, you you have two options. You either learn to fit in,
Mm.
or you, I mean, honestly, that's kind of the only option, to
Isn't it
scratch the
though?
second
Yeah,
rule. I mean,
right?
you learn to fit in, or you're going to continue to be miserable.
Yes.
That's it. And so that's what you do,
Yeah.
you know? And so all those weird stimmy things that feel awkward, or that, look awkward and people don't like, we learn to manage them,
Yeah.
a lot of times to our detriment in ways that don't bother other people. Um,
Exactly.
I grind my teeth endlessly and I chew on the inside of my mouth endlessly.
I was just going to
Um,
ask you what some of your stims were, so that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I
So,
have the hair pulling. I'm a hair
yeah,
puller. Like I pluck and pull my hair and always have, and nobody
yeah.
ever said anything. Didn't that
As a
look
kid, I
weird?
chewed on my hair. I always
Yeah.
had my hair in my mouth randomly.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I try to hide it like in videos from the waist down, but like I'm just spinning. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like wiggling in my chair and I can't sit still. And
Right.
honestly, I'd probably be like walking around and being all weird if I, you know,
Wasn't able
could
to
have,
strategize, right?
yeah, if I could have a
Yeah.
camera follow me, you see me wandering
Yeah.
around the room, like trying to clean stuff while I
Yeah.
do this.
Isn't that
But
funny?
yeah, we learn to mask it so people don't call us weird. We learn
Yeah.
to hide it and be more accommodating of those around us. And yeah, sometimes, you'll hear people say, like, oh, everybody does that. Well, yeah, everybody tries to be accommodating. You don't yell in church.
Yeah.
Like, you take a screaming baby out of a quiet room,
Yeah.
whatever. But like, I do it in every room I'm in
Yeah.
every situation I'm in, constantly, not just at church.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, and I think that there's a lot to be said with that in just learning how to use different language with with our son, for example, when he was really little and would hear negative words like no or stop, he would totally full, those were his meltdown words, like trigger,
Right.
trigger, trigger. And so we were like, okay, like we're not going to force him to hear the word no and get over it and say,
Yeah.
get over it. No, we're going to change. So I say the word no, and we're going to change, our, now he's older. We don't have to, we can
Mhm.
be a little less, he's more flexible with us now with our vocabulary. Thank goodness. But
Yeah.
there, he's so strict. And so we started saying, okay, let's change our vocabulary. Let's change our perspective. Let's start being more flexible with what we say because we want him to feel comfortable. He's at home.
Mhm.
Like we don't want him to
Right.
feel like
Right.
he's not can't be comfortable in his own home. So
Yeah.
it's really taught us a lot. And then now learning years later, that we're like looking at each other going, oh, okay, I get this
Yeah.
kind of
And
thing.
it's so funny. There's a lot of things that we realize that benefit autistic people or neurodivergent people that actually benefit everybody.
Yeah,
So changing up that language from negative language and saying stop running, stop doing that, to hey, can you use your walking feet, is
exactly.
actually a better option, because you're telling them what you want them to do. Yelling stop and no at a
Exactly.
child, um, isn't actually that helpful.
No, I agree. Yeah,
And that's true of any
it really is.
neurotype, you
It's
know?
so true. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. I think at least for me, like coming into my next era of life and looking, having this new perspective and this new kind of desire to parent differently, to look at my children a little differently and give them so much more like flexibility, and just be kind of like you can have your own independence,
Yeah.
confidence. One thing, our daughter loves to like cook her own breakfast and stuff, and she's
How
9.
fun.
And I love that. Yeah, if you can get up and be independent at 9 years old, make your own meals, do, your own things. And then she wants to do it for us too, which is so cute.
How
And we
cute.
love it. But it's great that it's instead of being in there saying, oh no, don't touch the stove, don't do this, don't, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Now, if this burns you, you're never going to do it again. Like,
Yeah.
look for this, because if this happens, you're going to learn a big lesson. But it's all of those natural consequences and her own moving through it naturally. That's what
Hmm.
she needs. That's the space she needs,
I
you
mean, and
know?
that's what every kid
Yeah.
needs
Right.
is learning through play. And
Yeah.
that for some kids that might mean reading a book or something, but for some that might mean jumping off of a jungle gym and realizing that that's how you break your fibula. Like
Exactly.
uh so it's all kids
So
learn.
true.
Yeah, all
Our
kids
son did
can
that.
learn
Yeah.
sort of similarly and benefit from the things that help autistic people. So people just do them.
Yeah. Right.
They'll help
Right.
you too.
No,
Yeah,
I
for sure.
agree. And I think that, I've been reading this really great book, and I probably posted about it, Uniquely Human. And it's just so eye-opening. And it's like a refreshing perspective to
Yeah.
look at it and say, yeah, you know what? We all are human, and we all jump up and down, and we all have in one time yelled loudly or something.
Hmm.
And yes, we all have to learn when is not, when and when not to do those things. We
Yeah.
all have to learn strategies. And for us to kind of put all this pressure on a child to stop behaving in a way that might be actually beneficial to them, like,
Yeah.
we're doing a disservice. We're doing
Yeah.
them a huge disservice. We need to stop and say, okay, what is this providing for you? What kind of, sensory input, output are you
Yeah,
getting from this?
for
And
sure.
then build on those kind of strategies. So,
Right. Exactly. And then, I mean, as you do that, you might realize that, kids around them benefit from those strategies as well, or simply think they're
yes.
cool. So,
Right?
so you get them like a wobble seat, so they can
Love
wiggle in their
those.
seat, which I have one on
Yes.
the way. Um,
Yes, I
be
love
here
that.
tomorrow.
For yourself
And
or for
for
your son? Oh,
myself,
love
no, for
that.
me,
Yay.
I might share. I don't know.
Right?
Um,
That's great.
yeah, maybe if he's lucky. But and they think that's cool. And now every kid wants the wobble seat, and
Yes,
cool.
exactly.
Like it's fine. Just make it normal.
I
Just make it
think so
normal.
too. I was talking to a mom that does kind of the same thing. She has a son, I want to say, that maybe has Down syndrome, but isn't verbal and uses like the iPad to communicate. And she started seeing this, parent or the teachers, oh, well, we can't have him bringing that device into the classroom. And the mom is just like, he has to have it. That's
He's
how he
going to.
talks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And instead of putting this fight up with school, she said, look, can I just come talk to the classroom? Can I just come talk to the kids? And she
Yeah.
brought it in. She let all the kids use it. She let them all see it, feel it, touch it, see what it does. And now they support him. Now
Yeah.
she has programs where she goes into high schools and other schools, and she says,
Yeah.
we can't just deny the needs of our kids. We have to bring everyone in the circle with
Yeah.
us,
For
basically,
sure. And if you look at the history of autism and how autistic individuals and children specifically were treated during World War II, because autism was discovered at the same time that a lot of people um, were being exterminated for being different,
Exactly.
um, and tested on and things
Yeah.
like that. And so I fully believe, and I don't have any thing besides logic to back this up, but I think the numbers of autistic people we're seeing now is because
It was like
they
wiped out.
they were wiped out
Yeah.
and now it's
Wow.
re-entering the gene pool. And so here we are, and people are like, oh, there's so many autistic people that didn't exist in my
Oh my
day. Yeah,
gosh,
yeah, because all
girl.
your friends were killed in World War II.
Yeah.
That's why
And
they
it's so
didn't exist.
interesting you said that, because like I can give you the stats, like it's driven 100, you've risen
Yeah,
170% since the 1970s, three times per
right.
year, like 1 in 3 autistic people in the next 8 years, right? Or something like
Yeah,
that. So
exactly.
that makes so much more sense. And
Exactly.
my husband and I always joke that it's evolution. It's
It
just
is.
a different way of thinking. It's not a disorder. It's not a disease. I'm not saying that it's not disabling for some people, and because the world is set up for neurodiverse, or
Yeah.
excuse me,
Neurotypical
thank
people.
you,
Yeah.
neurotypical people, and not neurodiversity, which we're
We
trying
can
to break
dream,
into,
right?
right? Exactly. We're building our own steps to the
Yeah.
rainbow. But yeah, it's incredible to be able to have these types of understandings about that. So that's really incredible. I like that. And I'm glad that you
Yeah.
got that
Well,
information.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I think if you give children now the opportunity to be inclusive, the opportunity to be kind, like the opportunity to understand and be accepting, by and large,
Yeah.
they run with it
Did
and they
you
do
read that
so
off
well.
this script I had written over here or something?
No, I
It's
didn't.
literally something I would say right out of my mouth. That is
Right.
exactly what I say about my kids, especially my children's books, get them into schools. Teachers aren't teaching emotional intelligence. Teachers
Right.
aren't teaching. We shouldn't expect them to, but why shouldn't we have the information available? Why
Yeah.
shouldn't we have it available so that they can be inclusive in all of their classes and with their peers? I think
Right.
it's so important. That's exactly what I say. Like, kids only face things with fear when they don't have knowledge to not face it otherwise,
Right.
right? And if
Right.
we give them just that little piece of knowledge and that information, it's so life changing for them, for their friends, for the brothers and sisters, cousins, whatever, church,
Yeah,
everybody in the
exactly.
community. Yeah, I mean, I know on my end, like, I'm doing big things, trying to, really get it out there in the community and celebrate. And so, yeah, thank you so much
Yeah.
for being willing to share your experiences. I want to talk about how, now that you are an adult, you were diagnosed as an adult
Uh-huh.
also, but how the workplace, how that is kind of looks for you, because I think that that's something, personally, like, I'm trying to do some employee corporate training on how to be more inclusive of your employees that have autism. So tell me some things about that for you.
Yeah, so the challenges that exist in a workplace are so deeply embedded in the way America functions in terms of work. Um, for one, my rigid brain loves to think that you're hiring me to do a job. And if I can finish my job in 20 hours, then I should be paid to complete my job. Um, like it's not my fault I can do it in 20 hours and everybody else needs 40.
Yeah.
You know, like that's
Yeah.
not my problem. I did
Right.
the job. I should be
Yeah.
paid because I did the job. And I shouldn't be made to sit here twiddling my thumbs or doing other people's work because I can do mine in 20. So,
Exactly.
so there's a lot that is just deeply ingrained in the American work culture that makes it very challenging. And COVID has been amazing in revolutionizing how we look at work. And honestly, I think it's done some amazing things for autistic people
Yeah.
and probably people with other disabilities as well, because like work and workplaces were forced to go remote.
Yeah.
And these are things people have been begging
Begging.
for
Yeah.
so long, saying,
True.
if you don't need me here, why can't I sit under my weighted blanket
Mm-hmm.
and send these emails all the same from my home?
Exactly.
Why can't I go STEM in peace and still get my job done?
Yeah.
And work was like, no, we can't, we don't. And now it's been amazing that COVID has really pushed us that direction. And um, my current position is the first one I have ever disclosed my diagnosis to. And it has been an interesting experience. It's definitely been um, more challenging than it has been when I didn't disclose
Yeah.
my.
Do you think it's kind of discriminatory in that way, or?
I don't even know that it's intentional. I don't think they're trying to be intentionally discriminatory. But I think there's some ableism that is in there.
Awareness
Um,
issues?
yeah, yeah. And so, and I work for people that work with people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Um, and that is why I mean, you would think that those individuals would be the best
Yeah.
at being accommodating, and they are with our customers. Um,
Yeah.
and that's why I
Interesting.
am really determined to sort of make this position work and utilize ADA to its fullest extent, because I fully believe that there should be a disabled person serving disabled people.
Yes,
And
definitely.
a lot of our population is autistic.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are autistic, so we see a lot of autistic individuals. And so I fully believe I should be there.
Yeah.
Um, but it is difficult. It's difficult to function in a work environment where I don't know, like I will never understand work culture.
Yeah. No, I think that my husband and I have, it's interesting. We've both, our parents would definitely push us to go get the city job, go work in the city, whatever.
Yeah,
I was a paralegal for years. So I worked in the city. I worked behind the desk and did all the work, just like you said. And really, though, our entrepreneur spirits were so heavy. And so we
yeah,
definitely had to get away because we knew that we just couldn't follow somebody's 9 to 5 that schedule. It
hmm,
was just we couldn't do it. It was looked
yeah,
horrible to us, you know. There
yeah,
wasn't anything appealing about it whatsoever. And so we've just kind of paved our own way and carved our own way through. My husband does construction, so there's a lot of flexibility and being able to be
yeah.
self-employed when you do that. And I'm doing these things, and so it's so nice to
Just a
be
couple of things,
just
just
a
a few
few
things
things,
here
just saving the world over here,
and there. Dabble.
exactly. And I only have 12 projects going on, not many.
Yeah, right. Story of my
Yeah,
life.
exactly. So yeah, it's really interesting. And I think that like I had said before, like I think I have always been so interested in something. I get in, I master it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. Okay, oh, I'll do something else. And then I completely switched. I went
Yes.
from like being a paralegal to being a massage therapist. And my
Right.
parents were just like, what? Like, are you crazy? That's no, you can't go. That's a horrible idea. Do you know what massage therapists look like? Oh, you know what I mean? Oh, and that was
Yeah.
like 20 years ago, 15 years
Yeah.
ago, when it was literally just becoming a big thing. And it was all these massage, places were finally coming and everything. And it was inundated. But at the same time, it was this hilarious, like, yeah, I'm going to do something different. Like, what? Of course. I'm not going to stay in this 25 years or something, whatever.
Yeah, for
I just,
sure.
not me.
It's so strange to me that people manage to stay in a position, a career, a field that, I mean, for like a decade or something.
Yeah, or
I
decades,
can't,
right? It
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
I can't handle that sort of pressure. And like it
Yeah.
makes me want to just quit and run instantly
Yeah.
when I think about it. And I've never had a job for more than a year in my
Yeah.
entire life, and I've worked since I was 16.
Yeah.
So I've never had a job for more than a year, which is very, very common among autistic individuals.
Definitely.
A lot of it is due to my husband's career in the military, but also it's because, um, honestly, by the time we move, I'm ready to quit. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready to be done with it.
Start
Like
something new.
you don't drag me out of there kicking and screaming. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
bye.
Right.
And so yeah, it's weird. And I will, jump to whatever that special interest is. And I'm halfway convinced that the reason I don't know how to do something, or like the reason I'm not a graphic designer, is because I don't have the right software.
Exactly.
It's not because I'm not capable, it's because I don't have the tools. And
Exactly.
that's my mindset on everything. The reason I haven't built a house yet is because like I don't own a saw. Like
Yeah.
not because I can't build a house.
Yeah.
It's because
I
I don't
love
own a
that.
saw, And
Yeah.
so I will, I always say like when my dad set me on his knee and said, you can be anything you set your mind to, uh, I thought that meant all at once.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
right.
you know, was like,
Yeah,
everything, all right, like dump it in. And apparently
exactly.
that's not how it works. But
Isn't
if
that
you need
so funny?
something done, get an autistic person to do it
Yeah.
real quick. Like,
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the
yeah,
truth? There's
yeah,
so many things I could, and one, hopefully once my son is at a more like flexible social dynamic with talking to us, then I hope that he helps with some stuff. I mean, I bought him this editing software when he was 9 because he was already editing videos at 9 years old,
yeah.
and he whips through all of this stuff. And now 3 years later, 2 years later, my husband and I are like, hey, we should use that for our videos. We have this software. Now we're like, hey, will you show us? No way.
Yep.
We're on our own. But
Yeah, he's moved on to some other special
oh,
interest
he
now.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. It's always, it's been geography a lot lately. It's been a lot of geography lately. So, which I love. So I think
I
it's
mean, that's,
exciting.
yeah, it's kind
It's
of
really
fun.
fun. Yeah. He just yeah, he's always going. I kind of think of my son, and I guess a little bit my husband too, but more my son, as like a computer that has all the tabs open at once.
Right.
All the tabs open. And so, and to be able to open his water bottle or things like those things are more difficult. Those life skill things are so much more difficult. But yes, he's telling me what, 5 to the 10th power is some quintillion number or whatever
Yeah.
it is, but
Yeah.
he can't get his water bottle open. And so it's
Yeah.
just so funny to see those, like, yeah. And other people, other parents, they probably look at it in much more of a challenging situation,
Yeah.
but we love it. We are like,
Yeah.
celebrate it, and I think it's
Good. That's
exciting.
awesome.
And yeah, we just, I call my beautiful chaos is what I have over here,
Yeah.
just constantly going. And everybody, it's like there's a meltdown a day, right?
Right. Well, and
So,
there are, I like to think like I'm not disabled because I'm autistic. I'm disabled because the rest of y'all aren't. Like,
yeah,
like I'm not
yeah,
disabled because I'm neurodivergent.
yeah,
I'm disabled because the world is neurotypical. And
exactly.
so it's not something that's wrong with me. I'm not broken.
Right.
I just am highly efficient and I do not understand why you can't be too.
Exactly. No, isn't that the truth? I really
Yeah.
had to, when I, kind of told you, when I told my husband that I thought he had Asperger's, and we kind of both, gathered together and brainstormed on all of that and just went, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Like all of the obsessions where I was like, no, you don't need another one of those.
Yes.
And he was like, oh, I absolutely do. And he all the facts and all the problems and all the things. And, there was just never a moment in his mind where it wasn't exactly what he needed. And now I'm like, okay, let's, now it's great because I can appreciate and not, not understand and not fight against it, because
Right.
that's what I
Yeah.
think that a lot of us, when we don't understand something, we just kind of like argue or don't want to look at it, don't want to see it. And
Right.
yeah, there's no time for that.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband makes me table things. So I'll say, I really need this. Like, I really want this. And he's like, okay, buy it next week. And I'm like, but he's like, if you still want it next week, you can get it. And I'm like, oh,
Okay.
okay. And usually I forget about it by next week and I didn't really need it. Um,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so,
that's
he
funny.
really wants to make sure if I'm going to invest in something, that it's going to be one of those special interests that lasts more than 2 weeks
Yeah.
or
That's
something. Like
that's
it's not one of
really
those
cool.
fleeting ones.
I think it's
Yeah.
great he's helping strategize for you and helping
Yeah.
you do that. Yeah. And how long have you been married?
So we've been married 8 years. We've known each other since we were 12.
What?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've
That's
been friends for
amazing.
quite some time. Yeah.
We've been together for 17 years now. So I
Yeah.
completely get that. I think that it's almost like I don't think if he and I couldn't have been in any other relationships for much longer than just a few months or years, like
Yeah.
it was, but when we found each other and it was like, oh my gosh, number one, we're opposites as could be, which is the strangest thing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we
Same.
also like we could still today have conversations that we may or may not have had over the last 17 years and be so happy to just sit out in the fireplace and just talk,
Yeah.
like, don't talk to him if you're a stranger. Don't talk to him because he doesn't like
Yeah.
anybody. But
Same.
I can do that. I'm the special person that gets gets to get
Yeah.
in there and have the conversations. And I find that to be so funny. I did a podcast about being married on the spectrum,
Uh-huh.
and for a lady that does a spectrum podcast. And so at the beginning she had invited both he and I to come on, and he was just like, okay, and it ended up being him writing down me writing down all the answers to his questions for him, and then me
Yes.
answering them and being the one that did the podcast. And he was so great in just telling her, like, looking at you in this screen, even though it's even an audio, like, I'm in full body sweats and I'm not about to do this and be uncomfortable. Like, sorry, here's my wife. He just was just
Yes.
like honest and blunt. And she was like, I get it. Okay.
I get
And
it.
it was great. But
And
we
good
laugh
for
about that,
him.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because that's, we were talking about how I'm really trying to give myself what I need, like
Yeah.
look silly in my headphones or, spin around in my chair or work standing up or
Exactly.
whatever it might be to regulate my sensory needs. And it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to be like, hey, I'm different and I need something else.
Yeah.
And I don't really care if that inconveniences you
Right.
because I spend 90% of the time trying not to inconvenience you. I
Yeah.
get 10%. Um, and good for him for being like, not feeling
Yeah.
him out. I'm
Yeah.
out. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't make me happy.
And
Bye.
it was great, and it showed the real thing, and the real, like I said. And go check out that poem too that I was telling you about. It's
Yeah.
called The Store, or My Visit to the Store, and it's just like 2 minutes long or something, and it's just his experiences. And like I said, how when he was punished for being different and being unique and having challenges and things like that instead of encouraged. And so he really sees the world differently as kind of
Yeah.
like a bunch of people that just don't understand and constantly judging him and always feeling ousted and kind of things like that. And so it's really interesting to, like, if I were to have written the same poem, it would all be like rainbows and flowers and how great it is to go out and meet people. But for him, it's painful. For him, it's
Mhm.
painful. It's not only like physically painful, like just the heartbeat and the sweating, but it's emotionally, like inwardly painful for him to
Mhm.
imagine, what is this person staring at me for? Why are they looking at me? Like, I'm not stealing anything,
Yeah.
and feeling like he's always being accused of something. And I just hate that for him. I hate that. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's kind of like where he has to strategize, right? Where he has to come in and maybe teach our kids what is better strategies for them going into places in the future. So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
And we all have, throughout life, we have a choice. We can, experience all those traumas or all those challenges and cope and that's a lot of where masking comes from and a lot of what kind of hinders autistic women.
Yeah.
And so, but we all develop systems or coping mechanisms however we can. And so, yeah, I mean, and it's all different. I mean, we all
Yeah.
have a different one, but we have to figure out something that helps us function in the world. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's to our detriment. A lot of
Yeah.
times it's the like
Stop your
it's harmful to
spinning.
us.
Stop your,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
Well, I hope that today's conversation can really inspire so many people. I hope that, that group that we both belong to, I'm sure that a lot of people would love to hear this conversation, would really
Yeah.
get a lot out of it. And not only that, but really feel a sense of connection and really a sense of, okay, I'm not alone in this. Like I have someone like Rachel and Sarah to fall back on and to just say, oh, they get it. They can give me some grace today and give me some, you know, some flexibility and in my wanting to vent or wanting to accomplish and be proud of something that, you know,
Yeah.
we've all done, even if it seems small. Like I think sometimes the smallest feat have the biggest celebrations. So
Yeah.
I think that we need to really just be kind to people, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think both you and I really just want from people. It's
Yeah.
just
For
be
sure.
kind. Yeah, let's get that out there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me
Of course.
today and
Thanks for having
being
me.
willing to be vulnerable and be real. And I just honor you and I'm so thankful for your time. So yeah, we'll definitely be staying in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll
Thanks.
talk to you soon.